When did the I crave attention kid go too far? Hey guys, welcome back to the internet. That's the question of the day, and I feel like it's going to be kinda difficult to keep this video monetized, so let's just get right into it. He was a jerk. I had a couple of pet goats, and he would come over and bully them all the time. He'd poke them through the fence with sticks, throw rocks at them, spook them with loud noises, but he'd never go into the pen. He was too scared of them. He should have known better, he was 16. One day, we're all inside and we hear this blood-curdling scream. In comes the kid, screaming at the top of his lungs. The goat! The goat is after me! Help! We turned to see the big billy goat staring at him through the sliding glass door. Every once in a while, it'd headbutt the glass. Now this was a very docile animal. He'd have never hurt a fly, but he was out for that boy's blood. It turns out that the kid had been torturing the goat. He had him pinned up against the wall of the pen, throwing rocks and sticks at his testes to see if he could hit them. The goat came after him, scaled the fence, and chased him across 3 acres of land and into the house. The kid waited for 2 hours for the goat to go away, but it never did. Anytime he opened the door to try and sneak away, the goat was right there trying to attack him. Eventually the goat disappeared and the kid tried to sneak out a window feet first, and once again started screaming because the goat was right there, headbutting his backside as he climbed out. It was absolutely liberating. Well, I hope you like stories of very troubled and horrible kids, because that's what most of these stories are about. They snuck vodka into state-mandated testing in a water bottle. She was sent home drunk off her butt, and my entire class was banned from having water bottles in class for the rest of the year. You know, I always hear people making the joke of like, oh, is that water bottle full of vodka? But I always wonder if somebody could actually hide it well enough. Well, I mean, apparently this person can't. There was this girl for a while that had this huge crush on me, and she didn't seem to realize that she had been a total jerk to me for most of my life, and I really disliked her. Finally, she decided to get my attention by stealing my $300 leather jacket and saying that she wouldn't give it back unless I went out with her. So I contacted her mom and told her that if she didn't intervene, then my parents were going to press charges. The day after she gave my jacket back, she sent me this long text about how I hurt her so badly and it would take a long time to earn back her trust. I replied by saying, I don't want you to trust me, I want you to leave me alone. And we haven't spoke since. Man, you missed your chance, you could have had a fun date out of all of this. My little brother is a few years younger than me. He used to come into my room and harass me all the time, and my parents never allowed me to have a lock. He was around 10 when I started popping a piano stand under my doorknob to keep people out. I'm so sick of people saying it was a fire hazard. You'd do whatever you could, too, if your parents never knocked and your brother used to shoot you with airsoft guns. Little brother pushed the door, and the piano stand was at the knob. I ignored it before all I heard was the loudest bang, followed by a thud. I opened the door to see him laying on the floor, holding his face and crying. Apparently, he decided that he could break down my door, like in the movies, by throwing himself against it after running from down the hall. But this dummy didn't just throw his shoulder or kick it, he threw his entire body against it like a squirrel going for a tree. Arms and legs out, face freaking first. I got blamed for it, but it was worth it. Only time I ever laughed that hard at his expense again was when he tried to fart into my room and crapped himself about 2 years later. Man, this little brother has some issues. A teacher assigned us a confessional speech, and he admitted he had the hots for his sister, then got defensive when we recoiled with ews and no ah. He claimed that we were all on the wrong side of history, and that consensual incest was going to be the next big thing. Okay, not gonna lie, the first time I read this story, I thought it was the teacher coming out that he had the hots for his own sister, and all of the students were like, ew. And after reading, I was like, how is that even relevant, but it's still entertaining nonetheless. I don't know, I think it would have been a better story if it was the teacher. He was a massive jerk. One day we had a supply in science, and he got up on the desk, whipped his ding out, and yelled, I'm Gandhi, then ran out of the classroom. He went to a special needs school 2 months later. I love it when a good plan backfires. When I was in middle school, our friend group had an attention-seeking girl. She was generally alright for a middle schooler, but we could all tell she was a bit troubled. She would lie about everything. She made up family members that didn't exist, tried to claim that every dark-haired, thin, female extra in a music video that only appeared for a split second was her, and all sorts of other things. For example, once she dug a huge hole in her lip and claimed that her brother punched her. Except she didn't have a brother. One day, she started texting us about how she's drunk, cut her arms up, and is trying to put things like Sharpie ink into the cuts so that it would poison her and kill her. Naturally, we all panicked. One of the girls in our group decided to call the police, and she ended up being put in some sort of mental hospital for a while. When she came back, she was super pissed at us and refused to speak to any of us. I guess she didn't get the reaction she wanted. She showed no physical signs of the kind of self-harm she claimed to have done to herself either. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bad when people threaten to do, like, self-harm for attention, but I mean, it's much worse when they actually do it, too. I just wish people could differentiate from good attention and bad attention, and try to stay away from the bad kind. faked her own kidnapping as a senior prank, even got the attention of Amber Alert. Well, this was from a freshman year of high school. Was told by a relative who was a senior at the time, and that was a while ago, so some parts may be fuzzy. Here we go. So that year, many of the senior pranks were usually generic things, like toilet paper, the works. So this girl had this great idea for a prank, and to be a standout, faking her own kidnapping. Shortly after school one day in late May, she called and texted her parents, and friends that were ootle, hysterically telling them that a stranger shoved her in a truck and drove off. She said she was scared and please help her. The parents and friends wasted no time and immediately notified police. Eventually the Amber Alert was issued. She was later tracked down and found that evening. Turns out that she was at the next city over, hanging out at her boyfriend's house. She confessed and was promptly arrested. The following day it was discussed primarily by the upperclassmen, and it didn't make it to freshman class until 6th period 2 days later. Man, I'm sure the police love kids like this. Cue back to that story from yesterday where the ex-prison guard was telling that mom, like, "You're raising a prisoner." I knew this girl in high school who was the queen of obnoxious and attention-seeking behavior. She was constantly trying to get people's attention, from screaming loudly in the hall to crying hard over sad memes at lunch. She was annoying, but unfortunately, many people bought and fed into her histrionics. Let's call her Cryface. I never really liked Cryface. She came off as fake and kind of rude. I tried to ignore her for the most part, but the absolute turning point for me was her over-the-top behavior at a choir concert junior year. It was 20 minutes before the concert was set to begin, and all the kids were practicing getting on the risers, of about 100 people. Suddenly, Cryface's mom entered the auditorium, briskly walked to the director, and whispered something in his ear. The director nodded and called Cryface off the riser. When Cryface got down, the mom whispered something to her. All of a sudden, Cryface lets out a blood-curdling scream and ran for the auditorium exit. She got halfway before collapsing to the ground and wailing. She kept yelling, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh," over and over again. The mom came up behind her, pulled her up by the elbow, and rushed out. Naturally, everyone in the choir thought something horrible had happened. Some friends had texted her. Cryface would only respond with cryptic messages like, "Nothing will ever be the same," and "Why couldn't it have been me?" Rumors spread that her father and little sister had burned to death in a car wreck. With a reaction like that, what else could it be? People were talking about organizing a carpool to attend the funeral and taking friendship shifts so someone would always be available to comfort her. I even agreed to a couple of shifts. Heck, the entire choir said a group prayer for her before the concert. And this was a public school. We were all so worried. Now, these thoughts would have been incredibly kind if that was what happened. But nope. Turns out Cryface's little sister was diagnosed with diabetes. The sister didn't go to the hospital. She didn't get sick and need medical attention. The family had only received the call that the scheduled medical test came back positive for diabetes. The mom came to tell Cryface because the family had decided to skip the choir concert so they could meet the doctor and talk about the medical diagnosis. Jeez, I mean, I know diabetes is not a good thing, but it's not necessarily, like, immediately life-threatening. Don't worry guys, we're almost done with these. He T-posed while standing on a table in the cafeteria and got suspended. The absolute mad lad. I had this girl in middle school who would purposely make up crazy lies, like saying she was related to Nicki Minaj, for the sake of impressing her classmates. The thing is, after a while, we all figured it was a load of crap, but silently agreed to just nod our heads whenever she came to share another jaw-dropping story. Well, turns out our tolerance created this illusion that her plan was working, and she must have felt as if it was getting the attention she craved, which worsened the situation. We were in 7th grade at the time. She was crushing real bad on a dude that was a year older. Instead of walking up to him and trying to befriend the kid, she makes a whole fake Instagram account which she used to DM him, set up a different name and surname, found a hot model with a relatively small following, and used her to catfish the guy. She'd post these photos on her feed, not necessarily send it to him directly, going, "Hey, this is me." They began texting, like everyday type of thing. He'd send her good morning and good night selfies, and she took ages to reply because she was constantly searching for a fitting picture. This fake girl was, supposedly, from a whole other state. They kept texting for several months. Nobody knew except for me and a few other people from our class, but we weren't spreading the story. To be honest, I wasn't very interested anyway. Well, it turned out the guy had booked plane tickets to go visit the non-existent hot chick he's been talking to non-stop. He flew to a completely different state hoping to meet the love of his life in person. Had relatives there, I'm pretty sure, so he stayed with them. He shared all this with the fake girl after landing. Yeah, she had to confess and tell him about everything. The girl moved schools after that, and her story spread like a wildfire. Not sure what went on with the guy. No, they did Skype call, and he heard her real voice, but since they never shared a word in person, he didn't recognize her from anywhere. Never video chatted though. To be honest with you, I have no clue how she managed to keep up with her own lies for several months before being forced to end it. Thinking back on this is more bizarre than I originally remember it being. You know, after reading all of these stories, it seems like when guys are looking for attention, they tend to be very destructive, and they like to just get themselves in trouble a lot. And then when girls go for attention, they usually like to cause as much drama as possible. I mean, I don't really know which one is worse. I mean, I guess there's a little bit less harm in the long run for girls that do this, but to any teenagers who are going through a phase like this, just know, no matter what you do during this phase, you're gonna cringe about it later, so just keep that in mind. But that brings us to the end of this Ask Reddit video. I know it's not the first Ask Reddit video I've ever done, but I feel like this is kind of the start of a new era, I guess you could say. I think that everybody agrees that there's too many channels reading the same stories when it comes to like the entitled ones and all that. And it seems like there's not enough Ask Reddit channels that aren't robots, so who knows, maybe it might go somewhere, maybe it won't, but we'll see. Also, I don't even know if you can tell, but Faye's been back there the whole time. I'll try and find a Faye video for the end of this one anyway, so thanks for watching.